Behind the polished facade of a luxury hotel, a single moment of prejudice exposes the cracks in its foundation and sets the stage for an unforgettable lesson in humility and redemption. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The story unfolds in a luxurious 5-star hotel located in downtown Los Angeles, California. The grand lobby is adorned with crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and plush seating areas designed to welcome guests from all walks of life. However, beneath its opulent exterior lies an uncomfortable truth about prejudice and bias that often goes unnoticed. Enter Marcus Johnson, a successful black businessman who owns several properties across the country, including this very hotel. Dressed casually in jeans, sneakers, and a plain hoodie, Marcus has just returned from a morning jog around the city. He decides to stop by his own establishment to check on operations before heading back to his penthouse suite upstairs. Little does he know that his appearance will set off a chain of events exposing deep-seated racism within his staff. At the front desk sits Emily Carter, the head receptionist known for her efficiency, but also infamous among employees for her condescending attitude toward people she deems below her standards. With perfectly styled blonde hair, designer glasses perched on her nose, and an air of superiority, Emily prides herself on maintaining what she believes is the hotel's prestigious image. As Marcus approaches the reception desk, Emily barely glances up from her computer screen. Her eyes flicker briefly over his casual attire before dismissing him entirely. Without acknowledging his presence, she continues typing away as if he doesn't exist. Marcus clears his throat politely. "Excuse me," he says warmly, flashing a friendly smile. Emily finally looks up, her expression cold and uninviting. She scans him once more, taking in his hoodie and sneakers, then lets out a sigh heavy with disdain. "Can I help you?" she asks curtly, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "I'd like to speak to the manager," Marcus replies calmly, unfazed by her rudeness. Emily smirks, leaning back in her chair as though amused. "Oh, really? What seems to be the problem?" Marcus raises an eyebrow, sensing her dismissive attitude. "No problem at all. Just routine business," he says smoothly. "I'm sure the manager would appreciate knowing I stopped by." Emily crosses her arms, her posture rigid. "Listen, sir, we don't have time for jokes here. If you're trying to pull some kind of prank—" "Prank?" Marcus interrupts, his voice still calm but firmer now. "I assure you this isn't a joke. Please inform the manager that Marcus Johnson is here." Emily rolls her eyes dramatically. "Right, because you look like someone important." Her words are sharp, laced with mockery. "Why don't you go hang out somewhere else? This place is for paying customers." Before Marcus can respond, another employee steps forward, a young bellhop named Jake, who recognizes Marcus immediately. "Mr. Johnson!" Jake exclaims, his face lighting up with excitement. "Welcome back. Is there anything I can assist?" "You with?" Emily freezes mid-sentence, her jaw dropping as realization dawns on her. She turns slowly to stare at Marcus, her cheeks flushing red with embarrassment. "Wait! You're Mr. Johnson?" she stammers, her voice trembling. Marcus nods, his expression unreadable. "Yes, I am, and you must be the receptionist everyone's been telling me about." His tone remains neutral, but there's an underlying edge to his words. Jake quickly interjects, attempting to diffuse the tension. "Emily, this is the owner of the hotel. He oversees everything. The staff, finances, operations. You should have called me or one of the supervisors when he arrived." Emily's face turns beet red as panic sets in. I didn't realize," she stutters, struggling to form coherent sentences. "You weren't dressed like... how was I supposed to know?" Marcus tilts his head slightly, studying her with piercing eyes. "That's exactly the point," he says quietly. "You judged me based solely on my appearance without bothering to find out who I am. That's not just unprofessional, it's discriminatory. The lobby falls silent as other employees and guests pause to watch the unfolding drama. Emily stands frozen behind the desk, her hands gripping the edge as though bracing herself for impact. Marcus takes a step closer, his voice steady but firm. "Let me make something clear," he begins. "This hotel exists to serve every guest, equally, regardless of their race, clothing, or background. When someone walks through those doors, your job is to treat them with respect and courtesy, not to decide whether they belong here based on your personal biases." Emily opens her mouth to apologize, but no words come out. Tears well up in her eyes as shame washes over her. Marcus continues, addressing the entire room. "Racism has no place in any workplace, especially not in mine. We pride ourselves on being inclusive and welcoming to all. Today's incident serves as a reminder that even subtle forms of discrimination can cause harm, and it's our responsibility to root them out completely." He turns back to Emily, softening his tone slightly. "I hope this experience teaches you something valuable. Consider it a wake-up call rather than a punishment, but understand this. If it happens again, there will be consequences." With that, Marcus motions for Jake to follow him and heads toward the elevator, leaving Emily standing alone amidst the stares of her colleagues and patrons. In the immediate aftermath of the lobby confrontation, Emily experiences the natural consequences of her discriminatory behavior. The summoning to the Human Resources Department marks the formal recognition that her actions violated company policy and human dignity. This meeting serves multiple purposes within the organization. First, it establishes that there are concrete repercussions for discriminatory behavior, reinforcing the seriousness with which such incidents are treated. Second, it provides Emily with structured support through sensitivity training and counseling rather than mere punishment, reflecting Marcus's philosophy that growth should be prioritized over retribution. This approach demonstrates a nuanced understanding that implicit biases often operate below the level of conscious awareness and require dedicated effort to recognize and overcome. Emily's emotional journey during this period would likely be tumultuous. The initial humiliation of being exposed as prejudiced in front of colleagues and hotel guests would trigger defensive mechanisms, perhaps blaming Marcus for not dressing appropriately for his position or rationalizing that she was simply maintaining standards. However, the hours of reflection and discussion mentioned in the text suggest a breaking down of these defenses. The true turning point comes when Emily begins to recognize the harm caused by her actions. This recognition represents a shift from seeing herself as a victim of an embarrassing circumstance to understanding her role as someone whose actions caused real pain to another human being. This realization is fundamental to genuine change rather than superficial compliance. Meanwhile, Marcus demonstrates exemplary leadership by transforming an individual incident into an opportunity for systemic improvement. Rather than treating Emily's behavior as an isolated case, he recognizes it as symptomatic of broader societal attitudes that may be present throughout his organization. The implementation of stricter anti-discrimination policies creates structural accountability, while the organization of workshops addresses the cultural and educational dimensions needed for lasting change. By addressing both policy and practice, Marcus establishes a comprehensive approach to combating discrimination within his business. The time marker months later is significant, acknowledging that meaningful transformation is rarely instantaneous. True change requires sustained effort, consistent reinforcement, and time for new neural pathways and habits to form. Emily's public apology during a staff meeting represents the culmination of this extended process of internal work. The public nature of this apology serves multiple functions. It allows Emily to demonstrate her growth to the community she harmed. It gives Marcus the opportunity to model forgiveness, and it communicates to all staff that accountability and reconciliation are valued within the organization. Marcus's gracious acceptance of Emily's apology showcases his character and leadership philosophy. Having achieved his objective of creating meaningful change rather than punishment for its own sake, he can genuinely welcome Emily's transformation. His encouragement for her to continue growing and learning acknowledges that overcoming prejudice is not a destination, but an ongoing journey. This approach likely creates psychological safety for other employees to acknowledge and work on their own biases without fear of permanent condemnation. The subsequent success of the hotel under Marcus's leadership underscores the business case for diversity and inclusion. The accolades earned for both luxury accommodations and commitment to equality suggest that ethical leadership and business success can be complementary rather than contradictory goals. In an industry built on hospitality and service, creating an environment where all guests feel genuinely welcomed becomes a competitive advantage. This outcome validates Marcus's approach and demonstrates that addressing discrimination directly can lead to improved business outcomes. Emily's evolution into one of the most compassionate and dedicated members of the team represents the story's most profound transformation. Having confronted her own biases and experienced both accountability and forgiveness, she develops a depth of compassion that might not have been possible without this challenging experience. Her journey illustrates the potential for those who have recognized their own prejudices to become particularly effective advocates for equality, precisely because they understand the internal work required to overcome biased thinking. The final moral that growth and redemption are always possible when we acknowledge our mistakes and strive to do better encapsulates the story's core message about the human capacity for change. It suggests that acknowledging mistakes is the essential first step toward growth. Without recognition of error, there can be no meaningful progress. The phrase, "strive to do better," emphasizes that overcoming prejudice requires active effort, rather than passive intention. This moral offers hope without minimizing the harm caused by discrimination or the work required to address it. Looking more deeply at the psychological dimensions of Emily's transformation, we might consider how her experience follows a pattern similar to transformative learning theory. Her discriminatory behavior stemmed from what sociologists call frames of reference, assumptions and beliefs about people based on appearance and racial identity that she had internalized throughout her life. The disorienting dilemma of discovering Marcus's true identity created cognitive dissonance that challenged these frames. Through reflection, dialogue, and education, she underwent a perspective transformation that allowed her to construct new meanings and behaviors. The organizational changes implemented by Marcus reflect best practices in diversity and inclusion work. Rather than treating bias as simply a matter of individual failing, he recognized the need for systemic approaches that address policies, practices, and culture. The combination of clear anti-discrimination policies, structural, sensitivity, training, educational, and his own modeling of inclusive leadership, cultural, created an environment where transformation could occur at multiple levels. This comprehensive approach acknowledges that discrimination exists at both individual and institutional levels and must be addressed accordingly. The resolution also touches on the complex dynamics of power and forgiveness in addressing discrimination. Marcus, despite being the wronged party, holds positional power as Emily's employer. His choice to use this power constructively rather than punitively creates space for genuine growth rather than resentful compliance. At the same time, the story acknowledges that forgiveness was earned through Emily's sincere efforts to change, not granted automatically. This balance recognizes both the importance of accountability and the possibility of redemption. The transformation of the hotel itself into an institution known for its commitment to equality and inclusivity demonstrates how addressing discrimination can lead to positive cultural change beyond individual relationships. What began as a painful confrontation between two people ultimately benefited countless employees and guests through improved policies and practices. This ripple effect illustrates how courageously addressing instances of discrimination, rather than ignoring them for comfort's sake, can catalyze broader social change. Resolution and Growth offers a nuanced portrait of how confronting prejudice can lead to transformation when handled with a commitment to both justice and compassion. Through Emily's journey from discrimination to genuine change, Marcus's balanced leadership, and the organizational improvements that resulted, the story provides a template for addressing bias in ways that promote healing rather than division. The final moral reminds us that the capacity for growth exists in everyone, encouraging readers to approach the difficult work of confronting prejudice with both determination and hope.